hi, howdy, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be doing another episode of my budget meals series. Today, we have a very special one. Usually, my goal is to make 3 meals for $30. Today, I was like, you know what? I'm looking at some of the prices of these things. I'm wondering, can I make this 3 meals for under 20 bucks? Chat, tell me how. I just made 3 meals for under $17. I'm going to show you guys the receipt real quick. $16.80. What the absolute fuck? One of the meals is a very not great, not very healthy meal, but it's a very good budget meal. And on top of that, it has plenty of grams of protein in it. And that meal that I'm talking about was like $3.40 by itself. Let's show you all the ingredients I got, show you guys the prices of everything, and let's dive into this, shall we? So starting off with the insanely cheap meal, this I do think only has about 4 servings in it. But that being said, it's 4 servings for $3.14. We have these shell pasta, which comes with a cheese sauce, so you don't need to worry about having milk or cream or anything like that. And then we have an entire pack of bologna. This bologna is $1.79. This was $1.39. You put that together, supposedly $3.14. Okay, yeah, I think I said one of those numbers wrong. Here's the math. Compare that to the numbers I just said. I don't know. I'm confused. Okay, now for the next two, the math is going to be a little more interesting because we're going to be sharing ingredients. So for the next one, we're going to have stuffed bell peppers. So I'm only going to use $2.23 worth of that for the stuffed bell peppers because I'm only going to use 2.5 of those. And then I got 90-cent rice. I got a pound of ground turkey. And I got pepper jack cheese, which we're only going to use half of. So overall, for that meal right there, stuffed bell peppers, it's going to be $6.46. And then the last meal we got here is I'm going to be meal prepping some breakfast burritos. We started off with a couple of breakfast sausage links, a pack of medium-sized tortilla shells, and some eggs, which is going to be $1.66. And then, like I said, we're going to use half of this pack of pepper jack cheese for those breakfast burritos, and we're going to use half of a bell pepper for that as well. So that is going to make the total for those breakfast burritos $7.19. Overall, 3 relatively solid meals. I will say, if you want to make these a little bit healthier, when I'm making my bologna and mac and cheese, I feel like you probably should have a veggie on the side. And you can go and get pretty much any frozen veggie for about $1 and add that to the total. And then you would still have 3 solid meals for under $18. Absolutely insane. Now I'm going to meet up with you guys whenever it's time for me to make the first meal. Let's meet you then. Okay, so the first one we are going to make is going to be the really cheap mac and cheese. I am insanely excited about this. If you grew up in the middle class or lower class America, odds are you've probably at some point in your life had mac and cheese and hot dogs. It's going to essentially be that, except for it's going to be sliced up bologna. And first things first, we're going to go ahead and take, I just want to use 1 pot for this. So we're going to go ahead and take 1 pot. We're going to cut up the bologna into probably 6. And then we're going to go ahead and fry them in a little saucepan for a little bit, put them to the side, and then we're just going to make the mac and cheese how you would regularly make mac and cheese. So let's do this, shall we? So I am going to be honest here. Growing up, I really was not a fan of bologna at all. So I actually don't know how I feel about bologna as a whole. But that being said, it was insanely cheap. Like, it was like literally the cheapest meat option they had. And I was like, whoa, bologna? Really? Cheap meat? Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and open up this package. How much slices are in here? Does it say? Looks like it's about 14. Yep, 14 slices of bologna in here. I'm going to go ahead and use all of them because I have nothing else that I would use bologna for, if I'm being totally honest with you. Oh, man, that might be excessive, though. That might be a really bad ratio. Okay, we got our bologna here. Oh, I just realized you can't see what I'm doing at all. Got my bologna here. We're going to go ahead and cut these right down the middle. You know what? We're going to make these into, like, little cubes. So we'll go something like that, something like that, something like this, something like this, something like this. Oh, so yummy, so delicious. This probably has an ungodly amount of sodium in it. I don't even think I want to check. We're going to go ahead and, like I said, throw that in a saucepan on the stove. Going to go ahead and put that on low heat. And if you put this in, what's called before the pan heats up, it actually supposedly helps like make the flavor more, how do I say this? It like renders the fat better, so there's more flavor to it if you start with the pan not on a high heat. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then, like I said, once that cooks up, we're going to go ahead and put it right back onto this cutting board and then make the Velveeta style mac and cheese right after that. Okay, now something that's good about using a meat that's like bologna is hypothetically, if I wanted to season this up and make it like a spicier style of mac and cheese, I totally could. Like if I wanted to throw some chipotle powder in there, I could. If I wanted to throw some smoked paprika, if I wanted to throw in some cayenne pepper, if I wanted to throw in buffalo seasoning, if you have buffalo seasoning, you could really make this any kind of mac and cheese you want. I'm just going to do basic, generic, because I'm boring and I don't feel like putting extra effort into this. But you really could make this your own if you have seasonings and sauces at your disposal. Okay, but now that that bologna is cooked up to your desired level of crispiness, I will admit I probably could have burnt these a little bit more, but I'm getting a little impatient. So you cook them as long as you want to cook them for. You season them however you want to season for. I'm being lazy, so I'm not seasoning them at all. Now we're going to take the same pot. I'm going to go in and just fill this up with like halfway with water. Bring that to a boil, and then it's time to make these mac and cheese. Okay, and I didn't do a good job of cleaning out my pan, so there's some like melted little bologna juice in there. I low-key don't care. We're gonna go ahead and pour our pasta in now that it's starting to come to about a boil. It's not quite there yet, but it's close enough. We're gonna go ahead and mix this in. Going to throw in a little bit of salt in there so that way all of the noodles don't stick together or stick to the bottom. And then we're just gonna let this boil for about, I believe, 7 minutes, and then we'll drain it. Add the sauce, add the bologna, and that's a quick, simple, easy meal. Okay, so now my noodles have came to a boil. I'm gonna go ahead and drain these out. Trying my best not to accidentally lose some of them. I'm being lazy and not using an actual strainer. That's kind of the whole vibes of tonight. I'm being very lazy. I'm having a very cheap meal. I just, feels like that kind of day. Because now, genuinely, the only thing there is left to do is to bust open this sauce packet and go ahead and add the sauce, mix it together, throw back in the bologna, and it should be good to go. God, that is such a peculiar color. I'm not gonna lie to you. I also don't like the thickness of it, but I think that that's kind of the point, is that's supposed to be like a thick, creamy, like nacho cheese sauce. Let's try the sauce by itself. Am I gonna hate this? I do hate that, yeah. And sometimes some food is better than no food. Cheap food is better than no food. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, we're going to go to mix this in. I didn't drain out the water perfectly, so there should be a little more liquid in here, which is going to hopefully make this a little bit more liquidy and ideally a little bit more creamy. But I don't know if that's actually going to work out like that. But we're mixing it in, we're mixing it in, we're mixing it in. And we're still mixing it, and all of a sudden, what? There's bologna in here. How did he do that? The power of magical editing. I'm hoping my future editing stuff makes that look seamless and cool. Because in my head, that's seamless and cool. But obviously, I'm going to be editing this like days from now. Who knows? But yeah, that is meal number 1. This is not super healthy, but I believe each serving of this, like I said, it's going to make about 4 servings. Each serving is going to have close to 24 grams of protein in it. And I think that that's pretty solid considering how cheap this meal was, how affordable this meal was. 10 out of 10 would recommend, but let's get to the healthier meals now. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and make our breakfast burritos. This one is relatively easy because it's a lot of just throwing stuff in the pan and then putting it in a big bowl and then at the end, wrapping everything all together. So, I will go ahead and say this. I'm going to include the leftover bologna in my breakfast sandwiches. You do not need to do that. I understand bologna is not for everybody, but I think it adds a little bit of extra protein and it'll really help me stretch this into potentially making 10 whole burritos with it. I don't think I can make 10 whole burritos with it, but we're going to make as much as we can because we really want to make the most out of our money. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and take our sausages and cook those up. Quite literally just going to go ahead and put those on a pan, put it on the stove. Right now, there is no heat on. We're going to go ahead and turn the heat on. We're going to put it on high, starting it off with a cold pan. Typically, like I said with the bologna, it's supposed to make it better. I honestly don't know if that's a true statement, but I'll believe anything on the internet at least once. And I will also share that misinformation on the internet at least once, because that's what I like to do. But now, while that is going and while that's cooking up, I'm going to go ahead and cut up my bologna into little cubes like I did with the last meal. And then we're also going to go ahead and cut up half of a bell pepper. One thing that does kind of suck about all of these, because they don't have an actual produce section, you can't buy individual bell peppers. So something I do to stretch my dollar when I'm shopping at Aldi's, if you get a 3-pack of bell peppers, you can make 5 stuffed bell peppers and then use half of the bell pepper for a veggie in another meal. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and dice up half of this bad boy. Okay, now we have these diced up and ready to go. Whenever those sausages are cooked up and ready to go, we're literally going to take those sausages out of the pan and then immediately throw these in the same pan. That way we're not dirtying up another pan. Okay, so we reduced the heat a little bit, but we went ahead and threw in those peppers and those bologna slices. Now we're going to want to go ahead and grab a bowl, put all 12 of our eggs in there. Look at that cutie baby. Put all 12 of our eggs in there and whisk it up so we can go to make some scrambled eggs. Okay, and now when I had that bologna with the mac and cheese, I thought that bologna would have been 10 times better if I overcooked it. So I'm trying my best to overcook that right now. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and whisk together a bunch of eggs. I already had eggs in my fridge, so I'm going to start with these 8 and then just take 4. But this package right here, this was the one that was $1.66. Okay, now before we do the eggs, I kind of completely forgot to mention, with the sausages, once they're cooked right, you should really be able to just kind of like slap at them and they're going to chop up immediately. So you obviously can put them on a cutting board and cut them up, but trust me, you don't necessarily have to. You can just put them straight in the pan or bowl with everything else and just kind of chop, 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 chop. Okay, so we got 12 eggs here. We're going to go ahead and take a whisk. Go, wow, 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 wow. Like so. Wow, 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 wow. Then on the pan, we're going to go ahead and throw in about 1/4 of a stick of butter. We want to use a bunch of butter. Go ahead and turn the stove on to a little bit above medium heat. And then we're going to smack this stuff down there, constantly folding it in with a rubber spatula. Okay, now seasoning-wise, you can use whatever seasonings you like. I definitely recommend salt, pepper, onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, and paprika. But like I said, you can season this however you would like. And then once this starts to get nice and cooked up, we're going to put 5 slices of our pepper jack cheese in here, let it melt. That way we're getting a good equal consistency throughout the entire burritos, because we're going to be splitting these up, and just absolutely, this should be really yummy and delicious once we get this up and cooking. Okay, and the last thing that we needed to do for this, we wanted to go ahead and take our tortillas. Since I'm meal prepping them, I'm putting them on a little bit of aluminum foil. You don't need to do that, but we're going to go ahead and put a pretty decent bit of filling on here in the middle, and then I'm going to show you quickly how to wrap your tortillas. What I'm going to do is start off folding in the sides, and then literally you just want to take the side that's closest to you, fold it all the way over, and use your pinkies to tuck everything else in underneath it. And trust me, the more you do it, the more you get used to it. It becomes super easy, and I ended up being able to make about 7 breakfast burritos with all of this filling. So overall, relatively solid, 7 burritos for about $7. That's about $1 per burrito, and it's going to be yummy and good, and it's the perfect meal prep. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Okay, and now it's finally time to make the last meal. If you've been following along with me, you should have the stuff to make 5 stuffed bell peppers. We have 2 peppers here, and then I have a half pepper over here. And we're going to go ahead and make 5 stuffed bell peppers. I personally am going to make an extra one because I have a sister coming over who doesn't usually come and eat with us. So just to be on the safe side, I'd rather have more food than not enough food. But follow exactly the instructions I'm giving you. But instead of stuffing 7 of these, you're going to be stuffing 5 of these. So first things first, you want to go ahead and cut all of your peppers in half. And then go ahead and preheat the oven to 400 degrees. Okay, so I got all my bell peppers here. Went ahead, cut them in half. We're going to throw them in the oven. The good thing about this meal that I don't think I've mentioned yet, this is a really good meal that you can make in about 20 minutes because you want to throw those in the oven at 400 degrees for about 7 minutes. And the first thing you want to go ahead and do, grab your 90-second rice, put it in the microwave for 90 seconds. The exact instructions will say to tear a little hole in it. So you want to go ahead and open it up so that way there's air in it. And then go ahead and break it up a little bit. Put this in the microwave for, like I said, 90 seconds. And then you're going to want to go ahead and cook up your ground turkey. I have a pound of ground turkey here because that's how much we bought. And we're going to go ahead and season this up very spicy, sweet and spicy preferably. If you have honey and brown sugar, you can put a little bit of honey and brown sugar in here. But mostly we're going to want to do a shit ton of chipotle pepper, black pepper, a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of paprika. And then go ahead and cook that on the stove at a high heat for, and you guessed it, about 7 minutes. Get this into as small of pieces as we can. I will admit, as much as I love this ground turkey once it's cooked, it does always sketch me out a little bit when I take it out of the tube. It is just like a random pink slime. But go ahead and put the stove on high. We're going to go ahead and, like I said, salt, pepper, garlic powder, a bunch of chipotle powder, and then a little bit of brown sugar because that little sweet and spicy kick is just going to be absolutely fantastic in this recipe. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Something I will say, anytime you are seasoning meat, season more than you think you do, because when you cook meat that is seasoned, typically about like 30% or sometimes even more than that will come off while you're cooking it. So always season more than you think you'll need to. And then if you get to a point where you're cooking and you're like, oh my God, I keep putting too much seasoning, then you can dial back from there. But trust me, it is really hard to over season something. So that's all the seasonings we're going to use. Gonna drizzle on a little bit of honey once this is all fully cooked up. And then it's been 7 minutes, so I took my bell peppers out of the pot. I'm going to go to flip these upside down, so whenever we stuff them, they're ready to go. Ow, 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 come on, one more, ow. Okay, perfect, we nailed that shit. Look at us go. We're so talented and cool. Hey, 90-second rice has been beeping at me for the last 4 minutes. We're going to go ahead and throw that in with the turkey. Oh. It might have helped if I opened that, but I kind of completely forgot to open that. Hello. There we go. Okay, now it quite literally is as simple as you're just going to go ahead and take this ground turkey and stuff the individual bell peppers with it. So just load it up. And then at the very end, you're going to go ahead and take the leftover pepper jack cheese that we have from our breakfast burritos and layer those on top. And then throw them back in the oven at a broil for literally just a minute. And it'll be golden and perfect. And like I said, this meal takes about 15 minutes to make. It is one of my favorites. It's a great staple. If you want to put a veggie on the side, you can. Personally, I think that the vegetable is the bell pepper. But some people, they don't think that's enough. You could spend $1, get some frozen corn, add that to this, and it'll be perfectly fine. Okay, and here's a little bit of a glamour shot of those. They're absolutely yummy and delicious. Trust me, these are nutritional, delicious, sweet and spicy, absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10 would recommend making these. Alrighty, and that was the last meal on this little meal adventure where we made 3 meals. I don't know why I put up 6 fingers. We've made 3 meals for about $16.80. That is a big deal. That is really great. If you are somebody who is really struggling financially, I hope that these can help you out. Something that I like to specifically do with these, I like to make 3 of these meals in a week so that I can splurge and make one big meal that's a lot healthier. Sometimes it'll have like steak. Sometimes it'll have, shrimp and other ingredients that are a little bit more expensive. If you mix in these budget meals with some more that are a little bit more expensive, it does a really good job of making it where you appreciate the budget meals a little bit more. Like earlier, I had the mac and cheese with bologna, and I was like, wow, this is really bad. But then the next day I was able to have shrimp Alfredo, and I was like, whoa, this totally made me suffering through that $3 meal worth it. Sometimes a struggle meal is called a struggle meal because you are struggling in life, and I think that it's important to always try to look on the bright side with these. And yeah, so if this video helped you, feel free to leave a like down below. I will be trying to make one of these videos once a week, but it's kind of tentative. It might be 2 weeks from now when I make the next one. That being said, I really hope if you guys like this, you feel free to subscribe and stick around, but I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.